is it the incident that made you like think like this is like the lowest place that, you know?
It was a whole host of events that happened in Las Vegas that, and it had started to happen before because I was actually homeless in Boston, and
My apologies. Okay, yeah, please.
yeah,
I will not interrupt. Yes.
I had lied to my landlord about being able to pay her because I was, I stopped showing up for school because I was enrolled at Harvard Extension School. And
What?
yeah, I was enrolled in Harvard and I couldn't stop drinking and using. So, I would come to class, but I couldn't go into class because I was so embarrassed because I was drunk, And I had a loved one, a boyfriend, and we were going to, we talked about getting married and everything like that. And he had died a few weeks beforehand. And so I tried to get on with my life or whatever, and I couldn't do it. So I was supposed to be going to classes at Harvard, and my family had really supported me trying to start this new life, and I genuinely wanted to do really, really well in it, but I could not stop drinking and I could not stop using drugs. And I would even go to bars and tell them not to let me in, 'cause
The next time I come, please.
yeah, please do not let me in. But obviously I would always
Of
talk
course.
my way into the bar, right? And so I was just stealing from people. I'd stolen from my family. I had lied to my landlady. I was stealing from my landlady as well. She had like that rice wine because she was Chinese. She had that rice wine,
Yeah.
So she used it for cooking, but me, I needed to use it for drinking.
Wow.
And like, I didn't know how much to gauge that I could drink so that she wouldn't notice that it had gone down. And she was
Yeah.
like 97 years old,
Yeah.
But that's I had no shame. Like, I was just stealing from a 97-year-old woman. And so eventually the new place that I found to live, I wasn't paying rent there, and I was making up excuses as to why I couldn't pay rent there. So eventually,
But you're still getting money, right?
no, because because in the military, when they're paying for school, you have to be enrolled in school in order to get money. But I flunked out of my courses at Harvard, so the money stopped coming. But I kept saying that it was coming, and then eventually they caught on to the fact that I was lying, and that I was stealing, and so I ended up in the streets, right? And so what's it called? I'd walk the streets of Boston all night, or I'd go to the park and everything like that, where I met, a person who's still my friend to this day, actually. Her name is Patty, and she was like, well, I was like, I've got nothing going for me here. I really need to, I think I just need to get out. And I'd been on the street probably at this point for about, I would say maybe 5 weeks or something like that.
Where do you sleep?
You just, I would go to bars and I would just talk to people, and then I would, say, oh, can I sleep on, a couch or something like that? And some people would say yes, or sometimes I would overstay my welcome, and then they'd say you have to go or whatever. So I'd go to another bar, and I would just try doing it that way. Like, that was how little I was able to gauge, the appropriateness of my situation, or, and I would try to find jobs. I would try to work, I really would, but I would either find jobs that weren't paying immediately, or, or I would try and stay with some of the people that I was working with, and, in their home, but I wasn't contributing in any way, and stuff like that. So eventually, when we this is how I got to Las Vegas, and she was going off to Burning Man, and she was going off to Burning Man, and I was left in Las Vegas, and I was like, don't worry, everything will be fine. And it really wasn't. Everything, I'd lost all of my identification. I'd lost. So basically, I was walking around Las Vegas. I was walking around this city with no identification whatsoever. So if anybody took me or anything happened to me, there
Yeah.
would be no way of
Tracing you.
tracing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one time I remember I was trying to find something to eat, and I don't know if I mentioned it in the Engage talk, but I was at the Hard Rock Cafe Casino,
Yeah.
and there's cameras everywhere in Las Vegas, but I just wanted something to eat. I hadn't eaten in days because I'd been taking a lot of crystal meth, and I needed to eat because I needed to take more drugs, right? But my body was eating itself, basically, is what happens. And I stole some salami out of the shop in the Hard Rock Cafe, and I ran down the street as quickly as I could, and I got underneath a bush, and I wrapped myself around the bush, and then I ate like 3 pieces of salami, and then I dug a hole and buried it, and then walked away because I was that paranoid. I was that crazy inside my mind. Like, I was that paranoid that I was going to get caught and whatever. And so then I went and I walked around the block, made sure no one was following me, and then I came back under the bush, dug up my salami and started eating it again. And then I slept under that bush, and then, the next day I was walking the streets to talk to someone else, and they were like, hey, I've got some drugs. And I was like, okay, cool. So then we went to that person's house, and then in that person's house, we're smoking drugs, and then there's, someone beats down the door, and they're like, where's my money, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, this person's going to get... So my first thought is like, save the drugs. So I grabbed the drugs, and then I opened the window and I jumped out of the window. Luckily, we were only on like the first or the second floor. I can't remember where.
Yeah.
But then, I ran away, but I was so happy because I had the drugs,
Do I need to ask which drugs they were?
Crystal meth,
That's the worst.
It's
Oh my God.
But that was... I just needed...
Yeah.
I needed to protect that. So this went on for about a week, and then I ended up at the women's shelter, and this is what was so crazy, was because, I had, my English accent and everything like that, and Americans kind of found that, exotic. So I would go to bars and stuff, and I would just put on my best, English schoolgirl accent and everything. People would be like, where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from Kenya, and I went to these schools and blah, 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 blah. Like, so completely delusional, because all I really wanted out of that situation was I wanted a safe place to be able to drink and take drugs. And it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter who I slept with. It didn't matter. It didn't matter because I wanted to get high. And I needed to be with people that were going to facilitate that. So I used
the drugs.
I used everything at my disposal to be able to create that situation. And Las Vegas is that kind of, it can either be like the city where you go and see concerts and you go and watch Celine Dion or Britney Spears, or you're in the underbelly of the city, and in Las Vegas, you can't even get a glass of water without an ID.
What?
Yes. Yani, you have to prove that you were over the age of, I think it's 18, to be able to ask for a glass of water, and it's in the desert. So if you're homeless with no identification, you can't even get water.
Okay, that's crazy.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to the women's shelter, because I was exhausting all of my options here, because that was when the woman on the street came next to me, and she she's just wearing a baggy t-shirt, like a long baggy t-shirt, and she's got hair shaved like me and everything, and she pulls up her shirt and she sits next to me, and she squats and she starts taking a dump. And I looked at her because in my delusional mind, I'm still like the prissy, like good little schoolgirl that went to boarding school and everything like that. And the look on my face is one of horror and
Yeah.
entitlement and just like, ew, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And the look on her face, and I don't know if this was just, a reflection from, my God or whatever the thing was, but the reflection was clearly, who do you think you are?
Yep.
Where do you think you are, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at where you are. And I realized in that moment that I was completely delusional. Like I was so far off the reservation of the reality of my situation that I didn't pick up on how I had allowed myself to fall so far from everything that had presented me with opportunity in my life. And the thing is I don't actually think I was in a position to accept or to really take advantage of any of the opportunity in my life, because I didn't know how, to be honest. And it wasn't that I wasn't told, or it wasn't that I wasn't told I should, about the great things that I had in my life. I had no concept of truly earning a wage, or truly appreciating what it took to be able to live and grow up in the neighborhoods that I grew up in, or the schools that I was able to go to.
Yeah.
I never truly had a concept of what it meant to be able to accumulate wealth and keep it. I thought I was owed it.
Wow.
And that was the big difference. And so I held on to that idea even into the streets of Las Vegas, that I was still that girl. And I wasn't. I was a homeless person, a drug addict, that the people who were actually in my old position didn't even see. Just like the way you don't see a chokora on the side of the street that's coming to knock on your window and he asks you for money and you say, "Not today, Baba," or you don't even look at them. Or the guys selling jugus on the side of the street and you don't even look at them. You don't even acknowledge them to say, "Apana Santi," like not today.
Taking your time and just
just to have that human connection, just to say no thanks.
Yeah.
I wasn't even the jugu guy. Like I wasn't seen. I had completely disappeared from you and I, as we're sitting here today. I disappeared from that site. So I realized in that moment that despite the fact that I thought that I was that girl, nobody else saw me as that girl. In fact, they didn't see me at all. And that was a horrible realization.
I can only imagine. And I mean, you're just leaving me speechless every time you finish your sentences. Okay. Yeah, my next question would be like, just how did you like bounce back? Because I don't see, man, once somebody touches like, heroin, crystal meth, like there's no coming back from that. And like just looking at you like right now, you look like really healthy, well spoken, well composed. I mean, how did you just manage to bounce back?
I wouldn't call it a bounce.
Okay, yeah. It's not bouncing. Wrong choice of words. Wrong choice of words.
I didn't like bounce back.
Okay, yeah. How did you just manage? Because like, I'm just saying that as like point of no return. How do you recover from that?
So this is what happened. So outside the women's shelter, when that happened to me, I was like, okay, man, something's got to change, And then you're not going to believe this, but this is a true story. I kid you not. So there was a lady who is now sitting on the side of the street, and she's cooking chicken on the side of the street there, and the Luya in me was like, hey. So, she's like, what's up, baby? And I'm like, hi. And she's like, you want some chicken? And I'm like, yes, I want some chicken. Of course I did. I was starving, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, she was this lovely she was like 75-year-old lady. And she offered me a place to stay while the women's shelter freed up a bed, because they have beds there, but you have to get on a waiting list, and then they buy you a ticket out of the state. That's what they try to do with the homeless people in Las Vegas, is they try to send them to a different state.
Oh, yeah.
But they'll only send you there if someone's picking you up on the other side, if someone can confirm to the shelter that you're being picked up on the other side. So I could confirm that I was being picked up on the other side in Utah, where I was going to go next. But I had to wait 10 days to get a bed in the women's shelter, right?
Yeah.
So I went to this lady, and she offered me a couch and everything like that to sleep on, and I couldn't believe how gracious she was being. It was so lovely, and she was like, "You should meet my nephew. He's so great. He's lovely." And yeah, I met her nephew and everything like that, and again, crystal meth.
Come on.
Drug of
Come
choice.
on.
He did a
so
lot
the
of-
nephew wasn't any good?
You will not believe this, but he was. What I found out later is that he was actually a pimp. So what they do is they post lovely old ladies outside the women's shelter, and they cook food. And because they know that when you're at the women's shelter, you're basically at the end of your rope, right?
Oh.
So
These
ladies essentially recruit you, right?
Oh,
So they
yeah.
lull you into a false sense of security. They feed you, they treat you really nice, and everything like that. And then she calls her nephew, and he suggests, if you're looking for money, there's quite a quick way to do it.
Don't tell me you were pimped out.
I wasn't.
Oh.
Luckily,
Thank God.
I swear to God, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything, and it was the next easiest choice. And that's why I have so much compassion and understanding for women that go that place, because there are just
Yeah.
some places of, or men even, who go to that place,
Yeah.
because there are some places of desperation where you go to where your body seems like the last, like it is not as important as it
Yeah.
is to eat or to get high or whatever the case may be. It's a very easy thing to give away.
Yeah.
And so, we would walk up and down, and he would show me. He would say, like, look, if I stand on this side of you, people will think that you're available for working. But if I stand on that side of you, they won't think that you're available for walking. And many times, like, he'd stand on this side of me, and a car would pull up, and they'd roll down the window, and they would ask if I was working, and he would just ask me very nicely, like, do you want to? And I would say, no, I don't want to. And he'd go like this, and the car would drive away.
Oh.
And that would happen several times in an evening, right? And so
I bet.
time after time,
I'm sorry.
time after time,
Yeah.
I had these opportunities
Yeah.
to be able to do it. And then I thought, I can't do that. Maybe I should just go to a strip club, right? Maybe I can serve drinks at a strip club or something like that. And so I went to strip clubs looking for work. And they'd ask me if I was able to dance, and I would say, no, I can serve. And I didn't have identification. So
Oh,
whether
so-
that was, God's a blessing
Yeah.
in disguise, I don't know. So then I remember I would stand on a highway with a sign.
You did the signboard thing?
Yes.
What? That's what I'm saying. Like, even rappers are not as hardcore as you are.
I did the signboard thing, and I had my sign saying I was trying to get to Utah, and people would stop. They would ask, they would say, I can give you money, but you'll have to perform a service. Truckers or
especially the truckers.
Truckers would stop, or regular cars would stop, or even just people walking by. They would just ask me. They'd be like, hey, I'll give you $80. And, $80 would be more than enough to get me to where I needed to go. But I'd have to perform a certain service for that to happen. And I would just say no, And so eventually what happened was the other girls in the same situation that I was, they realized that I wasn't there for that. They genuinely realized that
Yeah.
I wasn't there for that. And so they hooked me up with this other really lovely lady, and she hid me in her apartment bought me a ticket on the Greyhound and called her nephew over from the Air Force Base, who snuck me out in his car, took me to the Greyhound station. Oh no, took me to the bus station where I caught the bus to go to the Greyhound station. Now, I started running. I was running so fast because I didn't want these guys to catch me, because when I realized what they wanted from me, I lost it. And I started screaming and I started hitting the guy. And I was like, you told me that I was your daughter's age. Like, you were about to let me do all of these things,
Yeah.
and I'm the same age as your daughter. What
Would you
is
let
wrong
your
with you?
daughter-
Would you let your daughter do this? And I was crying and screaming and everything like that. And these girls, they said, we don't even know why he didn't kill you. If any of us had spoken to him
wow.
that way, he would have, he would have beat us. And so they helped me there. And when I got to the Greyhound station, oh my God, the bus had broken down. So I'm there, crouched in the back of the bus, crying, and I'm doing my foxhole prayer, right? And I'm saying, I'm like, if you are out there,
Yeah,
please just get me out of this situation. And I cried myself to sleep in a little ball at the back of the bus, and then I woke up to the sound of the engine, and I didn't even dare look out of the window in case they were at the Greyhound station looking for me.
Yeah.
And I finally reared my head up out of the window when I got out of Las Vegas City, and I was so petrified. And I think from that moment, when I got to Utah, I went to a motel, and I met a little lady, Chinese lady, who owned a motel in Utah. And I said to her, you don't have to pay me, but I'll make your beds. I'll make the beds in your home motel if you'll give me a place to sleep. And she said, okay. And so she gave me a little room with a bed, and every day, me and this other couple, they taught me how to make beds, and I made beds, and I vacuumed, and I cleaned bathrooms. And I did that for a week, and then she gave me $20. And then the following week, she gave me $40. And I hadn't stopped drinking or using at that point, but I was starting to pick myself up.
It's kind of in control a bit.
Yeah, a little bit more. And then eventually I made my way I saved up enough money to make my way to Colorado. And when I got to Colorado, I still continued drinking and using and everything like that. But I started to realize that this was truly what was getting in the way of me being able to be successful. And I started working at a Montessori school in Vail, Colorado. And like I mentioned in the Engage talk, one of the children told me that they loved me. And I couldn't believe it, because up until that point, I'd had difficulty just looking in the mirror, because I hated myself so much. I hated the person that I had become. I hated the daughter that I was. I hated the sister that I was. I hated all of these things about me. And this little kid told me that they loved me.
And who's even the last person who said that to you? I'm trying to imagine, like, throughout this whole horrible experience.
You know what? My family still said it to me, but I didn't believe it, because I didn't believe that I was worth it. And I felt like I had done so much damage that they were just saying it because they had to. I didn't understand the kind of love that they had for me.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I realized that I needed to show up for those kids, because they had no reason to love me. They weren't related to me, but they loved me anyway. There was something that I was doing right, and I realized that I needed help. And help came. It came, and I met people that helped me I met people who had been in the same situation that I had, and slowly but surely, I started the process of getting sober, and that was almost more difficult.
I can imagine.
Than all of that, because you are so you've never experienced emotions or frustrations, and it's huge highs and huge lows, and the voices in your head are screaming at you just to like put them out of their misery, put them out of pain, and just use again, drink again, or use again, do something again. And you know that if you use again, you'll lose everything forever or you'll die, and you don't know how to keep going forward, so you keep clinging onto these people that have been through the process. And I would scream at them, and they would tell me, stick around, we'll love you till you learn to love yourself. And I was like, I hate all of you. You're all happy and smiley, and you're all just full of shit, and I hate you so much. And they were like, okay, we'll see you again tomorrow. And I'm like,
Why? Yeah.
just screaming.
Yeah.
But eventually, if you can't, unless you know that to go back is to die, and to go forward, you have to have faith in something that you don't understand. Until you're at that point of humility and surrender, sobriety is not really an option. And so for people that are trying to get people off of drugs or alcohol, nothing will get them off until they're at that point.
They have to see it and actually decide in their head that they actually want to.
Yeah.
How long would you say it took you to?
3 years.
3 years.
Took me 3 years from the point in Las Vegas to the point where I couldn't do it anymore.
And now you're squeaky clean.
I wouldn't say squeaky clean.
Oh, no?
No, as in like